Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is February 23rd. It's Aloha Friday, and we're listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today, kind of cool, we almost have the whole crew with us. Aaron couldn't make it today, but it's good to see Robert back. Welcome back, Robert. I know you've been away for a couple days. And yeah, me and Karl, the only word. Oh, wait, that's right. No, Karl isn't. I'm the only one wearing an Aloha shirt today for Aloha Friday. I actually remembered. It doesn't look like Jyunmi did. I'm not making a big deal about it. Anyway, today we have Robert, Beth, Karl, Andy, Jyunmi, and I'm Brian. And like I said, today is Aloha Friday, but the goal of today's show is actually sort of our, hey, what did we just say? And what we mean by that is, like, we've covered a lot of topics now over the last 2 weeks. And so we had this idea, this is the second time we're doing this, where every other Friday, we want to just pause and sort of go back. Not to say all the stuff we already said, but sometimes we have other conversations that go beyond the show. Sometimes things pop up in the news. This happens a lot with AI, where things pop up the next day. And you go, oh, we didn't, that came out after we talked about this thing. And so we don't get a chance to hit it on the show. So this gives us an opportunity to sort of circle back. I know I have a few things. I will tell you right at the bat, I kind of want to talk about Gemini. I kind of want to talk about metaprompting again. So that's where my brain is, specifically Gemini 1.5. I don't know if that's on anybody else's radar. But I'd love to talk about that. But does anybody else have any sort of, hey, look, before we go any further, we need to circle back on this? Does anybody have some?
I really want to see if Karl is giving Google a pass now. I'm wondering if he's like,
no.
Okay, so he's still.
No.
That was a fast answer.
Of all the things that we talk about, you would be the one who would be very interested in, like, give me a German soldier 1929 and what has it given us?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And they had to pause it too because
okay, so stop with the image stuff. So ignore the image stuff. Talk about the million context window. Talk about the perfect recall. Talk about those elements of the 1.5. That is ridiculously impressive.
Of course.
Wait, before we start, I want to just, because I wasn't a part of the Gemini Advanced discussion, so kind of rewinding there and trying to add on the Gemini Pro 1.5 huge context window issue. I want to just quick preface it with what's really special about Gemini and the full line of Gemini. You go back not so far, like I think middle of the summer, they released Palm 2. And Palm 2 was, really the foundation of what Bard was. And, you're saying no, but Palm 2 is really an autoregressive language model that is really expert at translation and language itself. So anyway, there's your tape there. So anyway, then almost on the the coattails of Palm 2, which is still valid and still superior to many other options out there in its language skills and translation capabilities across multiple languages. Now they offer up this generalized multimodal intelligence network, which is what Gemini stands for. And this is an amazing attention mechanism to identify important features. It's a fusion process to combine learned information from multiple modalities. So the main virtue of all of the Gemini-related things, from Gemini Advanced to Gemini Pro to Gemma, which are the smaller models, these are all bespoke multimodal entities. Now, OpenAI will also have that, but I just wanted to frame that to just say there's something really bigger afoot here that Google's delivering that has to do with multimodal and then expansion of the context window back to 1.5.
Be that as it may, Andy, if I told you I was making you a great meal with flakes of gold and expensive saffron and it tasted like crap, you still wouldn't make any difference. So all this great stuff, that how it's built and how it's trained and the different modalities, that's great. But as Karl can attest, it's still generating crap and it's over-aligned. So,
I'll push back on that a little bit, because we actually have videos that are not from Google now with 1.5 showing it working. It's not fast, but it is taking 1 hour videos of slideshow presentations. Sam Whitveen, Witte, VEEN. That's who put out this video if you want to watch it. But he goes through it. He has like a long 20-minute video where he goes through. So I agree, by the way. I agree that it's a lot of hype and not a whole lot of substance sometimes. But he is showing it working. It's slow. I'm not really sure where all the use cases are, but it was able to take a 1-hour video. He was able to say, hey, he started talking about Gemini on about the 25-minute mark. And if you go to the 25-minute mark in the video, right there on the slideshow presentation, pretty cool. And I think there's like I'm interested to see what the future of that looks like when, Jyunmi, you can take any YouTube channel that becomes, I'm going to go ahead and say, pun intended, mixture of experts, right? Like the models. But the idea being that you can very quickly say, I want to make a video that quickly surmises 16 different viewpoints on this topic. And it goes, great. And it goes, boom, 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 boom. And maybe this is the future of like a Gemini model or whatever. And it goes ahead and automatically puts that video together and says, here's a 5-minute summary that's clips essentially of all these other videos where this stuff was discussed and not just talked about, but on slides.
Sure.
Not verbally discussed.
So wait, let's just orient just slightly. When we reviewed Gemini, we reviewed Gemini Advanced. 1.5 is not part of Advanced. So none of what we're talking about now was stuff that we talked about then. In addition, to my knowledge, Gemini 1.5 doesn't have the ability to create video. No. It does have the ability to process it.
Correct.
So
but let's say that Gemini 1.5 Pro being released and demonstrating the context window, because of the similarity between the architecture of those two models, it means that Gemini Advanced will also be available with enormous context windows.
Yes, and just being able to be accurate within 128 would be lovely.
That's the big one. As we know, months ago when we were looking at these huge contact windows that were increased from Anthropic and whatnot, they would forget the middle. But they've been doing tests with Gemini Pro 1.5, and they have been able to do exact recall. They'd find 3 words that were out of place inside the Great Gatsby. That is what I'm talking about. That's what I love. Everything else is still up for debate, but this part is revolutionary. And you partner that, or you couple that with the Grok chip, if we've talked about that at all. Holy crap. Holy crap. Like that's a whole nother level.
I think
let me add quickly though that demonstrating that capability doesn't mean that this is going to find its way into useful production for companies. Why? Because presently you pay per token. And throwing a whole bunch of tokens in, like with 1 million tokens going in as context, that not only creates a very slow response because it has to digest all of that first, but it costs a ton of money. So retrieval augmented generation is going to continue to be the right way to exploit.
Well, that's why I said that, Andy. That's why I said Grok. With that chip, it's an inference chip, which basically is 25 times faster. So then you don't have to worry about the slow speed of recall. So you could actually, yes, the cost might still be there, but now you could use the better models because you don't have to worry about using the faster models. I think that is the big takeaway here, that RAG might be gone if we can use the full context window with the quality of 1.5 and the speed of Grok's inference chip. That's what I'm saying.
And I think that will definitely, be coming. That's absolutely on its way. It may not be the Grok chip. The Grok chip is demonstrating.
Maybe it's the magic chip or the magi chip
there'll be other chips that'll be much, much faster.
Sure.
And I think what we're saying here too is, if I understand you right, Robert, is what you're ultimately saying is we're coming at these problems. We'll call them problems. The long inference windows of trying to take an hour-long video. By the way, that's impressive in itself. The idea that that could even be done. I don't care if it takes 15 minutes to process it. We weren't anywhere near this 2-3 years ago. So but what you're saying is, like, we have vast improvements and quick improvements on the software side as well as the hardware side, and those coming together could in turn take some of this stuff that's now taking 2-3 minutes, and it's going to take 2 and 3 seconds in the relatively near future. And I'm with you on that. Like, I think Google is demonstrating some real capabilities here. I don't think it's a moat. I just think they're the first ones to do this. And I think OpenAI, and as well as what Microsoft is building out in Copilot, although some same infrastructure. And by the way, not part of what we talked about in the last 2 weeks, but where the hell is Anthropic? They're raising a whole lot of money, and I'm waiting for them to come out with their next thing.
Yeah.
Like, what's their next thing? They're raising all this money. Like, what are they going to do? I don't know, but not what we talked about in the last 2 weeks. I'm just curious, like, where are they right now? You know,
they actually just posted something on LinkedIn, like trying to stay PR relative, and it wasn't even that exciting. I actually scrolled past it because it wasn't that exciting. That's the problem. It's a PR game here. Everybody's trying to. I think a lot of the time, OpenAI holds stuff back until somebody else releases something, and they go, "Oh yeah, we have this," just to trump it. You know, so
the Apple model.
Yeah,
the Apple model.
Totally.
We got that. And it's slicker, smaller, faster, you know. But Apple's like, we don't need to be first. We just have to have the coolest version of that, you know, 100 songs in your pocket or whatever it was that Steve Jobs said, you know, and like one of the coolest reveals of modern technology and stuff like that. Okay, so that
Karl
obviously we did talk a lot about Google.
Politely trying to join the conversation, so let's.
I'm doing my Canadian.
Let's move the Americans out of the way. Karl, do your polite Canadian thing.
Well, there's two things. One is from a RAG perspective, we got to think about not just what we can do, but just working with so many clients on their, you know, digital assistants, chatbots. It's like the one thing that we're missing is how can we integrate multimodal from a user to company perspective? So, hey, for example, in real estate, hey, I want a house that looks like this. So I'm going to upload you a picture. I'm going to upload you something, and I want you to find it. And then it connects to your, you know, your base of knowledge. And right now, the tough thing in the RAG model is you can't really upload videos. You can't upload images, or you can, but it's hard to bring it back out. So I think that has important implications on the interaction between customers and people. I think that's a really, really big important thing. And the second thing I just want to quickly touch on your point, Brian, is I don't know if anyone saw, there's a whole thread of people saying, hey, Sora was actually, I don't know if it's valid, but Sora was actually available March 2023. But part of the reason these things don't come out for OpenAI is it's not really a PR play. It's of like, hey, they want a social response before they release it. So they want people to kind of get ready. And then, so maybe part of that strategy is Google is going to release these things. People get excited, but people also start understanding, you know, start getting the foundations of what the implications could be, and then they release something. So maybe it's like, hey, instead of releasing everything at once, it's like trying to get society prepared, because it takes me back all the way to the hard fork interview with Sam Altman, where he said, hey, we want to release all these things and let people make the use cases instead of us testing it in like closed environments. So I think, but you can't just do that, because you can see what happens with Google and whatnot. So it's like, hey, get people prepared, get people used to, and then release. So it was just, those 2 points.
That's an interesting idea that we're like that we've talked about this, by the way, on the show. Like, OpenAI is playing in 2026 and we're all living in 2024, you know, that kind of thing. And we've talked about that before. Like, how far are they advanced to us? When Sam Altman is sitting and having and doing his interviews and stuff like that, quite literally, how much is he holding back and in a simpler term, lying for the sake of whatever they're trying to do? I'm not saying any other CEO would do it differently. I'm just saying, like, in his mind, is he thinking like, I have seen GPT-5. I know exactly what this is, and he's working his conversation backwards to what we currently have. To answer those questions, to not freak people. I don't know, but I imagine like he's got to have, him and other people at OpenAI must be sitting on some really profound knowledge about what's coming, and just to your point, Karl, maybe just not releasing that, or they want to do this in a more metered way.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I was just gonna say, I agree with Brian what you're saying. It's essentially any truly innovative company or has got some really good technology coming out has to take that into account, has to think that way, because to get the adoption and get people thinking down the path of what those use cases are going to be or how we're going to use this technology and things like that, you kind of have to train your customer base, right? And so Apple's super famous for doing this, right? That's what Steve Jobs did when introducing the iPhone. You know, people didn't have touch screens where you can grease eyes and all those kinds of things before, so they had to teach the customers, oh, this is the new tech. This is how you use it. Now imagine what you can do with it. I think we're in the similar situation with OpenAI and just AI technology. So seeing them or whoever in that space hold it back a little bit and then releasing it piecemeal is to just get people to understand it and then expand upon it.
So what does everybody think about obviously the other reason they might be holding back? Because they're only giving it to a certain people, because bad actors could really run with this, which if you saw what Tyler Perry did recently, he stopped the $800 million expansion of his studio in Atlanta. Solely his reason he gave was because of Sora, and he feels like AI might.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't hear this. Can you tell me more about it? I didn't hear about this.
It's an $800 million expansion to a studio inside of Atlanta that he was going to be building, and he stopped the upgrade because of what he learned about Sora and its capabilities. Because he thought, well, shoot, if this is where it's going, then I don't need this sound studio, all these different studios he was building, which is quite interesting considering. I mean, he might have made a knee-jerk reaction. He may go back around to it, but that is entertainment industry. Well, the other part of it is the bad actor, aspect, which if it looks as good as it does, and if you see the side-by-side comparisons, even Stability 3, as good as it looks like it is right now, which is another announcement that happened the past couple of days, I don't see it still reaching Sora's capabilities. So, and again, like Ethan Mullick always says, this is the worst you'll ever see. Today is tomorrow. So it's like, oh my word! Can you imagine?
So Robert, did you see Adobe stock plummet 7% after Sora came out?
It went what? Went up?
It decreased 7%. I think it was like something billions down.
Oh wow!
And that's although if you actually, these videos aren't technically usable in their current form. Like you could see in the background, like especially the woman. Like it's not like it's not perfect, but it's getting like. I think Tyler Perry, in my opinion, like, okay, you've been that's a little too like, you pulled the trigger on that a little quick, because I'm like, you're probably looking for another couple of years before that kind of stuff like totally takes it over. But
$800 million, I'd save that money. I wouldn't want to spend that, even if it's 2 years from now, because it might take 2 years to build the dang studio.
It could be $800 million studio.
Man,
yeah, I'm not sure about the Tyler Perry thing. I'm sure there's some other issues there, but I think what we got to remember about what you were saying is about the way that they're releasing it is they know it's new. They know that people don't know what's going on with it, and if they did release it to the public, everybody would hit it like a billion times over. I know I would be using it constantly to figure out the ins and outs of it. And they're probably just not ready there infrastructurally wise to handle that. That's especially from lessons they've learned when they released, GPT-3, right? Or even, or even DALL-E 3. So I think their method of releasing it to specific testers and things like that is a good idea, right? Have red teaming it and that whole bit, so that once they've gone through that process, that's another one of those social moves is, okay, so now we have people who are in the field, experts, and now they know how it
might
works.
be also
now we can release a piece of it.
It might be throttling the creator economy mass exodus. It might be a way to throttle the impact. Because I was at a conference for 5 days. I was at roundtables with all these people, mostly in the franchising industry. But I sat next to CMOs of very large brand, 1,000-unit chains. These fractional CMOs, belligerent I mean, I am talking like, no, not on my watch. We're not using this AI crap on my watch. It was like unbelievable how a CMO will, no, I want to write it myself. I'm not going to let anybody write it with AI. That was just writing blogs she was arguing about. And I feel like, holy crap, you are so going to be gone out of your role if you're not careful. I mean, not that it's replacing people, but it's definitely replacing people who are not willing to use it. You know, it's replacing people who are putting a line in the sand and saying, not in my company, not under my watch. It was scary. And some people were trying to bring her over, but I think maybe that slowing it down will giving the creators a way to learn it, way to use it, way to adapt their workflow. That's the secret sauce. Yeah.
I think you have a good point, Robert.
Given that time,
I was just going to say really quick to that point, Robert, just because I like that's a eye-opening statement. I think we've heard these stories, but hearing a CMO of a multi 1,000 unit franchise or something like that, or in any industry, but yeah, like I love what you're saying, because to me, like, I just foresee some conversation with the CTO or the CFO, or let's say the CFO talking to the CMO, and the CMO is going, yeah, but we do it the old good way. We do it the traditional way. And I have 20 writers and they write amazing blogs. And the CFO is going to go, yeah, we know we can do that with 5. And they're going to go, but it's not the traditional way. And the CFO is going to go, done. Moving on to the next thing. Like, let's reallocate those resources. I just can't see how, like, I agree with you. I just don't see how that lasts in the future to hold on to something like Kodak when phones take pictures. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Or Blockbuster not buying Netflix,
I said that on the round table. It's like, don't be a Blockbuster. Don't hold out thinking that you're the biggest, baddest guy on the block and realize Netflix just ate your lunch in a period of a year. Well, AI moves much faster than that. So, yeah. Sorry, Beth, I interrupted you. I just wanted to get that on Robert quick.
No worries. I think that one of the things that pin most of our conversations in this past week was this moving toward AI being able to be either automated or customized in a way that can get really specific about what you want, right? So we talked about metaprompting, which is a different kind of customization, but imagine, like, I'm wondering about the video. Okay, so we can give you a hour-long video, and you can train on it, and I can ask you questions, you being Gemini 1.5, in this conversation. Can that then be saved as something that stays in a context window? Did I just like short circuit training a custom LLM that I can save in a way that I can go back and forth to that? Because that then becomes really interesting to me as someone who trains people, as someone who wants to as we want to upskill the workforce in the most efficient ways possible, and ideally having the people that we're training be able to go back and ask the training when they're engaging in it in their real work.
You make a good point, which is that the larger context windows do reduce the need to do special fine-tuning. So if you take a large foundation model that has a wide range of reasoning and sort of agency-related capabilities, and you have a very large context window, you can give it the context that fine-tuning might otherwise. And so it does reduce the need for that kind of sort of processing of the LLMs prior to their use.
Maybe this is a different show where we can talk about context window versus RAG, because those are two different things, and that's a cool technical point, because like, oh, do you need RAG, right? Like Robert said, do you need RAG now if you have a huge context window, and if it can hold that much context and keep referring to that over and over and over again, what does that mean? Or from a RAG perspective, you still need multiple different types of, you can't just put every single different, we've seen a video, like one long video, but can it handle, even though it's multiple, 3 or 4 different videos, right? Because that's when it starts becoming useful. I want this, or 5 different types of knowledge bases that you want to pull from. So that one still we don't know, but I think like I'm pretty confident that will be solved. So it's like, hey, what's the role of RAG? What's the role of long context window? Very fascinating, especially from a business use case going forward.
Remember, there's a good analogy that was on a podcast. Remember when computers couldn't do multiple tasks at the same time? Remember that when you had one window open and you couldn't play a video in another window, you'd have to shut that. Remember, it used to be not too long ago, maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe it was long, or maybe longer than that, but you couldn't do multiple tasks. Multitasking was not capable. Your computers couldn't do that. This is an example, Karl. Eventually, yeah, 2 videos. Of course, we could analyze 2 videos at the same time, 20 videos. Like, it's just like the scalability and the speed at which things are adapting is just mind blowing, and it's exciting, but mind blowing.
Well, let me just say that when you think about multiple LLMs together as a mixture of experts in a single large language model, that extends beyond that sort of council of experts as well to other LLMs being paired with the main reasoning, sort of central processing reasoning engine, which is going to be an advanced model. It's always going to be more economic and more scalable to have LLMs or other outboard systems only bring in the relevant information to be the context for the reasoning engine. That's the way I think about it. And I believe that RAG is going to be, for economic reasons and for efficiency reasons and accuracy reasons, it will be less confusing to the model to have only the relevant things be delivered at the time of inference.
Andy,
can I play this really quick? This is from the video I watched, and it's specifically about what you guys are talking about how RAG probably won't go away. So maybe we can add this to the conversation. Oh, hold on, I got that on like 1.2 speed. 1 second.
That's how I do 1.7.
Could be a little annoying. You guys could hear it though, right? I have the audio on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is it?
So I would agree, but that was prior to Grok being released. And I think this is what the guys are saying on the podcast. The Grok chip is going to be on the phones. And when the Grok chip in the phones goes into the more efficient models that are using smaller amounts of data to train, the inference chip will be able to access, you'll have 20 LLMs on your phone, and you'll be able to access all of them in speed. You won't need RAG. So I agree in some contexts, if you have millions and millions and millions of lines of code, or then yeah, you might need to vectorize that. In RAG will be usable because it can pull out relevant information, sure. But still, the chip can make it even faster accessing the RAG, as well as faster accessing the token.
But won't Grok and all the other players price those chips relative to their processing throughput, so that even if it's faster,
it'll come down. Everything is going to come down.
I agree. But for the foreseeable future, I think it's going to be inherently expensive for you to throw 1 million tokens at a large language model.
Sure, foreseeable. But then that's just one chip. Imagine when OpenAI decides to do their chip and NVIDIA decides to do their chip. Everybody will have the chip. They just, that's a good idea. We'll do one too.
So where my mind is now wondering is, because we can use AI on all of these pieces, does AI then assess that actually there's only 20 minutes in this 1 hour video that you keep going back to, and we could distill that 20 minutes into this other thing that could be more of a context window, and then we still have this RAG retrieval from the larger context, like and in the unicorn show, the 1% billion value business, a bunch of what we were talking about there and in these contexts is the underlying abilities that we're using AI to perform. Some of that is analysis, some of that is agent automation kind of stuff, some of that is watching time, right? Giving you reminders, those kinds of things. And like I'm saying AI, we know that you can set a reminder without AI. It's totally fine. But those kinds of things, is AI now your chief of staff that allows you to do that and then chooses what part needs to be done by which kind of system? That then gets me excited, and that may be a lower context window. Yeah, Karl?
So remember our conversation, like you just touched on it, Andy, about our council of experts or our C-suite that we've created.
Yeah.
You can see that, right? So whether it's a long context window or not, you have, again, your council of whoever. And imagine if that long context window applies to OpenAI's thread, to OpenAI's like each, because it can, your thread is much longer. It can with memory, and it can remember everything. Again, back to the point, all it needs is monkey fingers. We just need the monkey fingers to do the manual labor, but you have it becomes even, your council of C-suites becomes even more powerful, and with higher reasoning, with longer context window, faster compute. That's your $1 billion. I think I do want to switch over to the $1 billion one person company or 1 billion valuation. I'm like, I think that's still doable, and back to the less than 1.5 to 2 years away. Because I think,
well, that'd be good. Maybe a good place for us to end this one on. Robert, you weren't on that show, but we had a whole conversation a couple of days ago about Sam Altman had said him and some other, tech buddies have sort of an office pool about how long it will take to get to the one person, $1 billion company. And so on the show, just for reference real quick, we talked about a lot of asterisks, right? And Jyunmi said, I'll take the asterisks, meaning like, does it count if you're one person, but you have 22 different contractors, right? Does it count? So we all essentially said, no. For it to be like legit, it would have to be one person. We came up with all these different ways we thought that might happen, past success and whatever. But, just curious to hear, Robert,
well,
how far away do you think we are from seeing a one person, $1 billion valuation company?
Yeah. So our buddies over at All In Podcasts, those guys, good guys over there at the All In
Good
Podcast.
friends.
Yeah, good friends. Real tight. I keep on missing his invites. He keeps on sending them, but they always miss my own email box. I can't find them. Anyway, yes, they've talked about this about 6 months ago. So my answer to your question, it's already started. The company's already started right now.
Okay.
It's happening right now. So it hasn't got to $1 billion valuation yet, but it's already there. So,
and is this somebody, just as a quick follow-up, is this somebody that has already had past success, has friends who they can get VC backing from, so on and so forth? Or is this somebody who's in their garage, a la Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and they're tinkering and toiling away, and they're literally building their chief of staff AI?
Yeah, 20-something that saw this on the wall and said, "Oh my gosh, I was already learning machine learning in college or whatever," and they just jumped at it and they just ran with it, kind of like all of us did when we first saw it. But this guy's much smarter than us, or gal. So whoever that person is yeah, that's their history. And there might be another one that's got a lot of venture backing, whatever, but more than likely it's the first.
Well, we're going to wrap this one up. This is sort of the fun of the that's why we like this show. I think we'll keep doing it. We wanted to test it out. Obviously, if you're listening, thank you to our listeners today. Let us know if you like this as well. I think it's fun for us to kind of circle back on things that we've been ruminating about and thinking about, and it gives us an opportunity to bring them back up. So we talked about it, some stuff we didn't come up with this show, but go back and listen to, because we did talk about deepfakes and what kind of kicked off from Taylor Swift, but other people as well. We talked about deepfakes. We had 2 different shows that actually talked about the U.S. and the U.S.'s position in whether there'll be global dominance. We talked about that yesterday, but we also talked about 50 different companies within the U.S. that you probably have never heard of. And so we talked about, who was on that list, and, why we thought they were interesting, drones and different things that they were doing. We obviously talked about Gemini. We talked about character AI. I wasn't here for that show, but it was a great one. We did talk about the one person unicorn, which we just mentioned, as well as some. We had 2 different shows in the last 2 weeks. So go back and listen to those. We're definitely seeing people go back and listen days later to a lot of our episodes. So circle back if any of that sounds interesting to you. Of course, next week we'll have a ton of new topics. We were just talking about that yesterday. We have some good ones. And Robert, we definitely want to bring you in and talk about Internet of Things, how it applies to maybe what you're doing and working with as far as franchise, what you do with WSI, because we think it'd be a really cool conversation to talk about where AI is playing huge roles as it applies to Internet of Things. So we'll have that coming up as well, and we'll be interested to get all your expertise on that. Awesome. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you again next on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.
Aloha.